Hi sewing friends, my name's Karina and I'm a visitor today here at Love Notions YouTube channel. You might know me from my own YouTube channel called Lifting Pins and Needles. I am part of the ambassador team from Love Notions. I've been in the team since 2019 and I'm very happy to be here today to share all my Breckenridge Henley versions. I have made 5 of them. You can see them behind me. They're all made with different types of knit fabrics, different versions, different views. I'm here to give you a lot of inspiration to make your own Breckenridge Henley. The Breckenridge Henley is a Feature Friday pattern today, October the 1st. That means that it is 60% off, $5. Get it today because it is the best price for this pattern that you'll see for a very long time. So it is a great day to get it today for less. I'm going to be sharing a review, all my versions, some inspiration and some sewing tips to get you fully prepared and motivated to sew your own versions. If you look down in the description box, you will see my affiliate link there. You can purchase through there if you want to, and I make a little commission from there. That is a way that you can support the work that I do without it costing you any extra. The Breckenridge Henley was released almost a year ago, last year in 2020. I was part of the tester team and back then I made 3 versions. I have added to my collection and for this video I've made 2 extra ones. Really enjoyed making them. It is designed for knit fabrics and you can choose between 3 lengths, a shirt length, a tunic length and a dress length. So whatever style you prefer to wear. From all of these, 4 of them have the shirt length and 1 of them is a dress. I can't help myself but make a dress. I think it's always really nice, especially if you like the details. The shining feature for the Breckenridge is this beautiful Henley. It's a different type of Henley, easier to sew. It doesn't have a collar. It is a band that overlaps and has a curve here on the neckline. It goes all the way around and finishes sort of at the bust point around there, maybe a bit lower depending on your height and how this fits you. It is a lot easier to sew than other traditional Henley plackets for sure. Very doable, very approachable. If you've never done anything like this, you'll be able to do it for sure. Don't be scared. Here on the Love Notions YouTube channel, Tammy, the owner of Love Notions, has a video showing in detail how to sew this placket. So if you buy your pattern, you can resort to that and look at all the steps and you'll be able to sew it. Also on my channel, I have filmed this last year in a little bit of a different order of events, but the end result is the same. It's just the way I found it easier. And it's got to do with doing a little snip a little later in the process. So you might want to see both techniques and see which one you feel more comfortable with. It's always good to have options. And you know, in sewing, you can sew things in so many different ways and get the same results. So you have those 2 videos there as a resource. The one in this channel at Love Notions. You can also check out the video I made last year. It's in full-blown detail, really up-close footage, so you can see exactly how to sew this placket. Give it a go, practice on some scraps and you'll be set to go. On this band, there are some optional buttonhole marks. You can actually sew buttonholes if you want to. I think maybe 99% of the population that has made this pattern has not sewn them. You can slip this over your head. The opening here is large enough, so you don't really need these buttonholes and buttons for function. You can sew directly your buttons there on the band, go through all the layers and just close it up, put your buttons there. And it'll look pretty, it'll look like the real deal without the fuss of doing the buttonholes. There are 3 sleeve length options here. You have a short sleeve, just traditional short sleeve. 2 of my versions have that sleeve, and then you have a long sleeve with a cuff. 2 of my versions have that. The other option that I haven't explored is just the sleeve folded up with a tab. It ends up being about 3/4 length. The reason I haven't sewn that, even though I like it, is because you also need to like the look of the wrong side of the fabric you're using, because when you fold this up, the wrong side of the fabric will show. Most of my knit fabrics either have a white back or an ugly wrong side of the fabric. If you want to try that version, look for a knit that is pretty much the same on both sides, or that you like the look of the wrong side of the fabric. Otherwise, the long sleeve with a cuff does the trick. One thing about the cuff might be different to others that you've sewn in the past. This one's a better cuff in my opinion. So the typical cuff is just a rectangle, no difference between the top and the bottom, which means it'll fit your forearm here, but sometimes it ends up being really wide here at the wrist where it's narrower. So this cuff is different, it's more anatomic. I'm showing you how it looks like. You can see it goes in at the center and then back out. You sew that at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. One thing that I like to do with cuffs and bands is sew them on the sewing machine, because then you can press the seams open. In this case, my fabric doesn't need to be pressed open, it just opens up on its own, and then you can fold it wrong sides together, and I think it's less bulky than if you do the seam on the serger. So if you like sewing with sergers, that's perfectly fine, but keep an open mind that in some types of projects, some specific areas have a better result when you mix and match. Do a little bit here with the sewing machine, do a little bit there with the serger, and you might avoid some bulk. The cuff has that shape because once it's folded together, you'll get a wider edge here that will match this area, and you end up with a smaller, narrower bit at the wrist. It's just a nicer fit of a cuff. Whenever I see a cuff like that on a pattern, I really like it because it just fits so much better and looks so much better than the traditional rectangle cuff. So that's a little tidbit about the cuff here. If you hear birds, I cannot control them. They are everywhere, and yeah, I try to film outside because the sound quality is always so much better out here. Also nicer for you to see all the greenery, nicer for me also to get outside and not be inside all the time. But the birds are around. As I mentioned before, this pattern is designed for knit fabrics. You cannot use this pattern with a woven, and I see this question a lot in the Facebook pattern support group. Every time there's a pattern that's released for knit fabrics, there's always someone that will ask, can I make it in a woven if I size up? I would say definitely not. You cannot make this pattern from a woven fabric even if you size up. The upper chest, the armhole, the sleeve, it just won't fit right, and especially the way that you finish this neckline. Parts of the neckband here are shorter than the neckline, where you have to stretch the band to fit to get this band to lie close to your chest, your upper chest and the back of your neck. So you can't just sew that with a woven fabric. You know, it's not going to work. And if you want to make a muslin to test your fit, you do need to find a similar type of knit that you're using for your main project. It definitely needs to be a knit that stretches at least 40% horizontally. Some vertical stretch also is required, not as much as 40, maybe 20% will be okay for you to be able to move your arms up and down and have a nice comfortable fit, or in this upper area. You can make the Breckenridge out of a lot of fabrics, from lightweight to medium weight knits. When you go up to the lighter type of variety, you have ITY, you have double brush poly, single brush poly, Rayon spandex, modal spandex, bamboo spandex, that type of fabric. Now it'll be fine, you'll be perfectly fine. The only thing that I find is that you might have a harder time sewing the placket, just because these types of fabrics are a little bit more difficult to manipulate than others like cotton Lycra. That is really easy to manipulate and you'll be able to sew this really easily. So I would suggest, if this is your first time doing a Henley placket and you're not used to these techniques, I would suggest you start with a cotton Lycra. If you have some in your stash, it will be much easier to manage, much more stable and structured there for you to sew without it sliding and just moving everywhere like ITY, for example. Another thing that I like to do when I use lightweight fabrics is mix fabrics. So I'll make the whole body of the garment out of a lightweight fabric, and I'll use something different for the placket that is a little heavier, just to make the process easier. You'll see that actually when I show you all of my versions. So don't be scared to mix and match. Don't use a very heavy fabric for your placket, just something a tad heavier than your main fabric. If you've chosen something that's a little more tricky to work with, having a stable type of fabric for your placket will make it easier for you. If you have access to performance fabrics like thermal fabrics, you could use that. You could use athletic knits. I know I like using athletic knits, and I have one of them made in one. It can also get wet. It can be sort of like a swim top. If I wanted it to be, it would get dry really fast. Rib knit also would be really nice and comfortable, as well as a sweater knit. What I would say about some types of fabrics that have a lot of stretch but not that much recovery is that you might want to consider stabilizing those shoulder seams. You know, it's not that hard. The way I do it doesn't need any extra notions, no special tools or anything. I just cut strips of interfacing that does not stretch, very lightweight, about 3/8 of an inch. Cut a little strip and I fuse that onto the back shoulder seam. Having that fused means that that seam is not going to stretch anymore, and then I can serge it and sew it, no drama. That seam will be pressed to the back. So that black interfacing or whatever color you're using won't actually be seen from the inside. It's not going to look ugly. And I have stabilized the shoulders of all my tops except for one. And I regret not doing it. These seams can stretch out over time and you end up with a deformed shoulder where the sleeve is weighing it down. So have a think if you want to try doing that. Because this is a newish pattern, it's got the full size range included from extra small to 5X. That will go up to a bust of 57.5 and a hip of 59.5. There is a standard bust option and a full bust option. If you have a larger cup size and the difference between your high bust and your full bust is 4 inches, 5 inches, 6 inches, the full bust is going to work well for you. If you have a smaller sewing bust cup size A, B and C, where the difference between your high bust and your full bust is 1, 2 or 3 inches, then the regular bust option will be fine for you. I think it's great that the option is there so we can all get a good fit. Keep the shoulders fitting well, the sleeves fitting well with just that extra room at the bust. Always take into consideration that if you're using the full bust piece, your garment will have 2 extra inches of ease at the waist and the hips compared to the regular bust option. So take that into account. You know, you might want that extra ease there, you might need that extra ease there, or you might want to just take it in a little bit and customize the fit to what you prefer. Because the priority is having it fit right at the bust, then adjusting the waist and the hips can be very, very simple. Bring it in at the side seams. This pattern doesn't have negative ease. When you choose your size, look at the body measurements chart to choose your size. And for your base size, always look at the high bust. Find your high bust on your body, measure yourself, find it on the chart, choose that size, and then you can start blending in and out if your waist and your hip size does not match that same size that the high bust does. So you always want to prioritize the fit up here, and then everything that comes below can be blended in and out to adjust for different types of sizes. So at the bust you have 2 inches of positive ease. If you're doing the full bust option, you have 4 inches of positive ease. And at the waist, it's quite straight going up and down, so there is a lot of room at the waist. And at the hips, you have about 2 inches of positive ease. You have 4 inches if you're sewing the full bust option. The shirt length will hit mid-hip depending on your height. For reference, I'm 5'8" and I don't add length to the shirt length, and I like where it hits there at the mid-hip. Maybe you like your tops longer, maybe you want them shorter. That is something that you can customize. Just by taking away length around the waist area, you can get the length that you like. The dress is meant to hit at the knee, above the knee, and I had to add 1.5 inches for my dress to be above the knee. It would have been short for me if I hadn't added the length. But please think about your height and take a bit of time to think about if you need to shorten or lengthen your patterns so that they look like it's intended for your height. If you are 5'1", these patterns are drafted for 5'5". Have a look, measure and see where you might need to take away some length so that the garment looks appropriate and not like you're lost inside the garment because it's just too long everywhere. This is including the sleeves. In my personal fitting, I've added 2 inches of length to the sleeves. It's something I always need to do. I'm going to show you all my versions to give you some ideas. I'll be also inserting some footage, video footage and photos of all my versions as well. This is the first one I made. This is a double knit made out of cotton. It's really nice and it's got a lovely texture there on the right side of the fabric. I get extremely bored with just plain solids. I cannot sew them. It's really hard for me to sew them. And if you're similar to me and you always go for the prints, that's cool and fun, but sometimes you actually do need some solid colors to match with other things in your wardrobe. Keep your eyes open for nice solids that have a texture like this. This one has a nice amount of stretch, both horizontally and vertically. I believe this does not have much spandex in there because I have to be careful. I don't want to just stretch it because the recovery is really poor. This is the one where I didn't stabilize the shoulders. So I just sewed my shoulder seams normally. I just didn't remember. I regret not doing that. But they are fine. I do wash these in a gentle cycle. I'm really careful with my clothes. I hope it will last. But this has been very, very comfortable to wear. A lovely top. Put on some little wooden buttons there for a little detail. You can always use a twin needle to hem your tops. and this is lovely, my first version. Let's call this my muslin because this wasn't my favorite fabric, just because it's green and it's a solid, but it turned out lovely and I'm very glad I made it and it's wearable. My second Breckenridge Henley, this is the one that I made in an athletic knit that can also be like a swim top if it got wet. I could just easily get in there and get wet and it would dry really fast. It's made out of polyamide and spandex. This is the heaviest weight out of all the ones that I've made. It's super lovely. It doesn't cling to the body. I've used the short sleeve, twin needle hem, and I've used a different fabric for the band, for the placket, just because this fabric was super slippery. I thought I did not want to deal with that. Also, I was filming the tutorial with this and I thought you would see much better what I was doing if it was a contrast fabric. So this is a jersey that looks like denim. It's really stretchy, but also structured and very easy to work with, very easy to press, easy to sew, and it made sewing this placket super easy, much easier if I'd tried to do it with this one. Yeah, it would have just been sliding everywhere, and although it would have been possible, it would have taken some of the enjoyment out of the project. This is very nice. This one is my fancy one just because of the print and the fabric. I can get away with wearing this with a skirt and some little heels, or also wearing it with jeans. It's a really versatile one, and I've worn this one loads. Since last year, it's been one of my most worn tops. I really love it. I think it's special. Even the little square buttons are special. I just like everything about it. My third one is a dress, and I made this one with a tropical print rayon spandex. But the colors in this tropical print are sort of autumnal. You know, you have a lot of orange and green and yellow. It's really, really nice. This one is the cuff. I used the same type of fabric I've been using for the plackets. I've used here as well. This is what I meant about using something a little heavier here than this. The rayon spandex is lovely. It feels lovely on, super drapey, super soft, comfortable on. But I know that working with the placket in the same fabric would have been a little bit more fiddly. Totally possible, but just making it easier, I chose to do that. And it also looks nice. It highlights the feature there when you have a print. If you have this feature in a solid, I think you can see it much better. If I'd done it in a print also, I think all this feature would have been lost in the print. So those are my tricks for sewing with prints a lot. I try to highlight the features by doing something contrasting. Never looks bad, looks really nice. And this is just straight down. I love these types of dresses because they don't take up much fabric. They are very easy to sew. And it's just like sewing the top. It's just that your side seams are longer. That's the only difference. There's nothing harder about making the dress than making the shirt length. Nothing at all. I really love this one. The Breckenridge was made with cooler weather, transitional type of weather in mind. I'm in the southern hemisphere. I'm in spring right now, which feels like summer. It's really hot. And I'm always thinking of ways to make these patterns also accessible for all types of weather, really. So I wanted some loungewear. I thought it's going to be perfect. And I decided to make this version that I've just made for this video sleeveless. I cut my own little pieces of binding. They are 1¼ inches tall. And then the length, that is what you measure from your garment. Now, because this is meant to be loungewear, just to be comfy around the house and fresh and sleep in, I just used the same armhole that you would use for the sleeves, knowing that the binding would just bring this all in and I wouldn't have gaping. That's always the case. Here on the table, you can see my armhole. I have already sewn the shoulder seams and the side seams. I just put it there very, very neatly on the table and measured how long this is. Not from the raw edge, but 1/4 inch in, because that is the seam allowance I'm going to use. You can see that on that one side I get 9½ inches. So it's 2 because there's 2 sides to this armhole, so multiply that by 2 gives you 19. I want to make my binding at 85% of the 19-inch circumference, so you just multiply that by 0.85, and I got 16.15. I'll just round that down to 16. And I'm also going to add 1/2 inch seam allowance, because when I sew this binding together, I'm going to use 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then I can sew that together, divide that in half, divide the armhole in half, and then I'm just sewing it on the round with 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm using a shallow zigzag to allow stretch. Then I do a few snips around the curves and fold this in. I always like to hand baste this first so it's nice and neat, and then I just top stitch this down 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I use a shallow zigzag to do that. So my fabric is a rayon spandex. It's pyjama fabric for me. It's the most comfortable, the most fresh, the softest. And look, it's plaid print. I cannot wear this type of print for regular outerwear. Like, I wouldn't have made this to wear it outside with jeans or something, because for me, in my head, if I see plaid, for me, it just equals pajamas. So this fabric was perfect. I bought it to make pajamas, and I love the red and the blue. It's very nice. I took care to match some of the plaid on the side, not all of it, but the larger sections, those are matching on the sides. I use the same type of denim look jersey I've been using for my plackets. I have some in navy as well. So that went really, really well. And I put less buttons here, only 2. Just because this is loungewear, I'm going to sleep in it, I'm going to wear it in the house. And so if it's a little bit more open, it doesn't really matter. My other ones have more buttons, have 2 more buttons to close it up higher. And here is my sleeveless armhole with the binding inside. Shallow zigzag will allow the stretch, and it was so fast and easy to whip up and put together. And you know, there's no excuse to sleep with ugly things when we can sew and we can make them super pretty. Now, what am I going to wear at the bottom? Because this is just a top. I have here a garment that is multi-purpose. I made this a couple of months ago, and this is the shorts from the Luna Loungewear collection, also from Love Notions. Super nice comfy shorts. Instead of putting elastic on the top, I put a yoga waistband. This is a really lovely rayon twill, super drapey and soft and comfy, and like you can wear these all day. You can sleep in them and it goes perfectly. And have a loungewear set, pyjama set. So pretty, I love it. I always wanted a pyjama with this type of placket. It makes it really special. I'm so happy. Go ahead and make yourself some Breckenridge Henley pajamas. Now, if you want to make some pajamas for colder weather, make it long sleeve. Just make the shirt length with this long sleeve. If you want to make long pants, the Tranquil Nightwear collection from Love Notions has these lovely pants with lovely details for pajamas. It's so comfortable because they don't have a side seam. They just have an inseam. So fast and easy to sew. That would go perfect as pants for this, and you could have a lovely pajama with a super awesome placket. Why not treat yourself to sleep in lovely things when you can make them? Not a bad idea. This is my Breckenridge top, modified to be a loungewear top. I have taken off the sleeves and made it sleeveless. I finished the sleeveless armholes with binding. I've got it paired with a navy pair of shorts that I made using the Luna Loungewear collection from Love Notions. It's a great pattern, great basic, super comfy shorts, well fitting. And I've got a yoga waistband under there, which makes this so comfortable to lounge in. The placket, the band is still the same, and this is a rayon spandex in a plaid. For me, a plaid just screams loungewear pajamas, so I think this is perfect. Here's a closer look of the neckline. I have only 2 buttons there. My opening is a little lower here, just because it's loungewear and for sleeping. Otherwise, for the other ones, I've got a higher closure with 2 more buttons up to there. But this is absolutely fine. I'm not showing anything either. I'm very happy I made myself something like this just to treat myself, to look nice when I'm gonna sleep also. The Breckenridge is perfect for pajamas as well. It just depends on your fabric choice. And then my last one is a really special one. This is a sweater knit version. I had to take a little bit more precautions to sew this one. You know, sewing a sweater knit is not the same as sewing a regular knit fabric because it's just more loosely woven, a little bit more delicate, can stretch out really easily, the form. So there are a few precautions that you need to take with these fabrics, but they're so lovely, so lovely. It's so soft, so beautiful. And the band worked really well, the placket right there. I had no drama right there. Now, the only thing with this one, at the earlier stages, there is a step where you need to interface a little section here at the back to stabilize this area. That is mega important for a sweater knit because it's just a more delicate fabric. So I do have red tricot interfacing. I found a little bit and I've been using every single bit. So I marked with chalk my reference there, the line. I fused on my little piece of interfacing and all my marks disappeared. So then I went back, folded my little piece, put my pattern piece on top, and then marked those references again with a friction pen so that I could actually see where I had to sew to put this placket on. which is different to the other ones. You know, these ones are harder to mark, but the chalk works wonders for me. I have no issues marking notches with a chalk. It's just that in this area, it needed to be something more precise, like a friction pen. I have the long sleeve with a cuff. This is what I mean when I say that this is an anatomical cuff, because it's wider here at the way it's your forearm, and then narrower here where you have your wrist. So I really like that. I really enjoy that. This is such a lovely sweater knit. I have sewn my buttons through. I don't have buttonholes, and I just put 4 buttons there. I hemmed it with a twin needle, just being really careful. I like to lengthen my stitch length for twin needle hems, and it works really well. This one looks nice. This is one of my Breckenridge Henleys made out of a red sweater knit. So soft, so nice, so warm to wear. A little extra precautions to use this type of fabric, but totally doable. I have the shirt length, it hits mid-hip, and the long sleeve with cuff. I'm really happy with the fit. It's got enough ease, but it's not boxy, it's not oversized. I really like that. The band, the placket went on very well. Up closer you can see this neckline. I have 4 buttons sewn through all the layers, no buttonholes. Here's my cuff, so nice. I like sleeves nice and long like this for this type of cozy garment. I think the depth of this V is really nice. You can pull it over your head and take it out without an issue. It's a really fun technique, a really beautiful feature, and worth all the extra steps. And I'm very happy with this red sweater knit. Red is my favorite color, and I feel amazing in this color. If I'd had an extra day to sew, I would have made another one. I was really hoping to make this one, but I ran out of time. I'm going to show you the fabric anyway. And this is a sweater knit, and it's got purple. Look, I just mentioned that plaid for me equals pajamas, right? But this one doesn't, because it's printed on the bias. You can see, I love that. I love a plaid on the bias. So, you know, you can cut your fabric on the bias, but this one is like this. So it would be so beautiful. I would make the placket in a black, or find a little scrap of purple. I know I have in my stash to make the placket, the band. And it would be a long sleeve dress. I have purple boots. I hope I can make it come true. Super lovely. This is a sweater knit with a bit of lurex in there. It's got a lovely stretch. It would be perfect for the job. Really nice and structured as well. It doesn't curl on the sides. Easy to work with. So those are my ideas. I really hope I've motivated you to get up and sew your Breckenridge Henleys. You have a lot of fun doing it. You'll be super proud to make garments like this. The neckline is really beautiful, and it's really not that scary. Have a look at the videos provided for support. They are going to help you get through the technique. Once you've done it once, you can do it 5 times like I have, and it won't be stressful at all. Don't forget that the Breckenridge Henley is $5 only today, October the 1st. That is 60% off the regular price. You won't see it come back on this type of sale for a whole other year. So don't wait, you know, get it today, because it's the best price you're gonna see for a very long time. I will leave you my affiliate link in the description box if you'd like to purchase through there. I make a little commission from that sale. Thank you so much for joining me today at Love Notions, and have fun sewing. Have a great weekend. Bye.